Okay. This is a regular meeting of the Allendale Land Use Board at which formal action will be taken on the items listed on the agenda and upon any other matters which may properly come before the Land Use Board. The requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied through posting on the public bulletin board and in the municipal building and in the borough website and by publication in the record on January 13th, 2025, with copies being sent to the Ridgewood News and the Herald News. Certain agenda items will be open to the public for comment and/or testimony. The board will advise the public when such matters are open for their comment or testimony. Before we get into things, I ask everybody to join me in saluting the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Linda, please.
Vice Chairwoman Bergen.
Here.
Board Member Warzala.
Here.
Board Member Petrino.
Here.
Board Member Guglielmo.
Yes, here.
Councilman Yakarino.
Here.
Board Member Dallo.
Here.
Chairman Sirico.
Here.
Board Member Butler.
Here.
Alternate Conti.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next on our agenda is we are going to have an oath of office from Mr. Aguilera. If you would be so kind, thank you for staying with us and doing this. Thank you, Council.
My pleasure. Amy, please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Andrew Foglero,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith, allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
and the government established in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties
and I will
faithfully,
faithfully, impartially,
and justly perform all duties
perform all duties
of a Class 2
of a
member
Class 2 member
of the Land Use Board of the Borough of Allendale,
of the Land Use Board of the Borough of Allendale,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my
so
ability.
help me God.
So help me God.
Thanks and congratulations. You're not allowed to be sick. No more. It's done.
No more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's put it on the bottom.
No more sick. Okay.
Fine print.
Yeah. Oh, we got to keep this light. Okay. So next on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the February 12th, 2025 land use meeting. I reviewed them. I don't think I had any changes or some minor things. Anybody on the board have any changes that are provided to Linda? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to accept, please?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Who was second?
John.
Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chairwoman Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Petrino.
Yes.
Councilman Yakarino.
Yes.
Board Member Dallo.
Yes.
Chairman Sirico.
Yes.
Board Member Butler.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now moving into the public hearing section of our meeting tonight. Before we're going to keep everything in order with one exception. Council, please.
Sure. So, good evening, everybody. We've got a matter on the agenda this evening that is going to be carried to April. We've got counsel here, as I understand, on behalf of that application. The applicant is Lissong Gary Capital Group, application number 2025-06. Counsel, I know you want to be heard. We'll put you on the record in a moment. The board's benefit, this application was not going to commence tonight. The applicant did effectuate notice. However, the periodical did not timely publish. So it's a procedural defect and the applicant cannot proceed. They're aware they cannot proceed. But I believe this evening they're intent on preserving an aspect of their notice, which was the certified mailing. So I'll let counsel go on the record. And then from there, we'll consider whether or not the board will carry you to the next meeting without further notice in that regard.
Good evening, how you doing? Richard Muglia, MUGLIA, of our legal advisors today representing the applicant, Larry Leesong, Guard Group LLC. What we were looking for was initially the application was meant to be heard today. We did send out all of the required documentation. However, there was concern that the publications would not clear in the amount of time. And then we spoke with Linda, and she indicated that we could move to the 21st And what we just wanted to make sure is that our notices, they could carry to the 21st, so there are no issues with regard to the notice. And then we will have the final disposition on April 1st.
I don't see an issue with this as long as council says. And we don't have to do that on board? We don't have
No,
to
nobody
vote?
do anything.
No, as long as,
We could just simply consent on the record, the
That's
applicant's
fine with me.
request. Yeah, there's no issues with the applicant's request. I've been in this situation before on that side of the table. It's unfortunate, nothing you could do about it when the periodical
Mhm.
flubs it. So, if there's anybody in the audience here in connection with this application, you will not receive further notice of the matter. It will commence on April 21st in this room at 7 p.m. There will be a periodical publication, but you will not receive any further notices in the mail. This is your notice of that scheduled start of the meeting on April 21st. Okay? Anything, Council?
council?
And that's
All right.
Thank you so much. I
So we will see you on the 21st.
Okay, and there will be no further requirements of doing any further publication or what?
I think just submit the affidavit of publication when you get it back. Understood. To Linda's office, and we'll append that to the affidavit that's already on file.
Understood. I
Council
just wanted to
paperwork.
make sure I was there. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, just for interrupting. Paperwork's been submitted. We have everything.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Boss says it's here, it's all here.
All right.
All right. Thank you, council. All right, we will see you on the
Good day.
21st. Thank you. Okay. So now we go back to the agenda the way it's written. Mr. Snipes, the floor is yours. We're going to hear the discussion of land use draft plan, hazard vulnerability assessment study of the master plan. Okay, so you're going to present. Do you want to touch on anything?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give the board a brief overview of what they actually received this evening, but also where we are with the status of various components of this sort of grouped document. There's two separate documents that the planning board is reviewing right now. It's going through an amendment to the land use plan of the master plan. We have that in draft form that's been reviewed. It's in the status of review. We're making some changes to that document, and we look to have a public hearing in the near future. In addition to that, we have now a companion document that goes along with it. It's called the Hazard Vulnerability Assessment Study of the Master Plan. What that really looks at is any impacts to our land use plan and or planning that the municipality is doing as it relates to changes in climate. As we're seeing certain events are occurring, certain changes are occurring, and we wanted to make sure we're in compliance with state standards. The state had adopted new rules several years ago requiring that this study be done as a companion to the land use plan. And so that's what precipitated this discussion.
Because we haven't had this in any of our
Correct.
previous.
It's a brand
master
new
plans.
element that hasn't been done. So what we've done is utilize the outline that's required by the municipal land use law to compile the document. And the document really follows several steps. And what I can do for the board, and I know I just distributed it this evening, the draft copy, and I don't expect anybody to understand or be familiar with the document yet. But generally it covers threats and vulnerabilities that we could be potentially subject to, such as flooding, such as increase in precipitation events, things of possibly increased heat events, things of that nature. And then what's required by the statute is for us to look at a build-out analysis. The build-out analysis is very simple. It really looks at the amount of vacant land you have, looking at the number of units that could be potentially realized as a result of vacant land. But the real purpose for that build-out analysis is to look at if you have anything in vulnerable areas as a build-out. Obviously, being a mostly built-out community, we have obviously certain properties that might be subject to those threats, but yet at the same time, there's no future planning such as large farm fields or things of that nature you can imagine in some of the more greenfield communities that would have large farms and things of that nature that had overlay planning on it that might need some adjustment from that planning or master plan standpoint. But the build-out analysis really is very simple for Allendale. The next item is review of critical facilities. We look at any of the essential services and or utilities or other municipal facilities that might be in harm's way or considering certain emergency protocols associated with those facilities. And then we also touch on strategies and design standards that are recommended to avoid and to possibly help reduce some of the risks. Also potential impacts on relevant components or elements of the master plan. We talk about the circulation element, things of historic nature, the housing plan and housing element fair share plan, but also, and then the last section touches on policy statements, whether they're goals and objectives, and many of those are tied to the land use plan that we had distributed. So this document provides sort of that overall summary. I gave the board that overall brief presentation PowerPoint several meetings ago, and this document is following up on that presentation. So that really gives you the summary of the overall document. It's dated a draft date right now of March 10th, 2025. I don't expect to go into this in great review, but that what we'll look to do is look over this document, see if there's any changes or modifications tied in with the land use plan. But since the two documents are a companion document, I'm looking to look to have a public hearing by which the planning board will review both the land use plan and this hazard vulnerability study in one meeting, just because they're two documents connected to one another, but to give that general public presentation at a future meeting. I think we're currently looking at the 21st of April as a possible date for that meeting, or possibly one of the other dates that are available to us. I'm trying to adopt this document in parallel. What we're also going to be doing, I think I gave this board an update with regard to the housing element and fair share plan. We're helping to have this document inform the housing element and fair share plan as well, because you can see the interrelationship between those two documents. It's only logical that the two be connected, but yet it would be good to have this adopted before we have to look at the housing plan. If you remember, I touched on the schedule for the housing plan. All municipalities within the state are mandated by June 30th to have a new housing element and fair share plan adopted. Very aggressive time frame that's been established, but that we're working on it currently, and we expect to inform this board in the near future what's part and parcel of that document. But you can see how things are multiply or interrelated, let's call it.
Despite all these lawsuits going on.
To the various documents.
The dates are still holding.
Yeah, it ties into some of that. But at the same time, this establishes your master plan. And the master plan really is that overall guiding document for the policies and sound planning within the community. You'll hear sound planning as probably one of the more prominent aspects of how housing elements are being prepared now. Because most municipalities, several municipalities are built out. So we're talking about possible infill development. So therefore, we're trying to make sure it's being done in a smart and appropriate way for scale and context of municipalities. So that would really give the board the summary of the document. Maybe we can schedule a review of that draft if that's deemed necessary, or we can then just go right to a public hearing.
Is there anything in here? I mean, we have some time.
Okay.
Is there anything in here you want, we're scheduling time.
Yeah, I didn't know how fast you wanted to get to
If
the other.
you want, if there's
other
highlights,
cases.
because again, none of us have seen it, as you
Sure.
pointed out,
Mhm.
okay? But if there's things in here that if you take, say, the next 10 or 15 minutes and you point things out to us to
Certainly.
keep an eye on,
Mhm.
or to think about, and you've been doing this for a long time for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand, and
Okay.
I didn't want to,
Go.
totally take over your schedule, but at the same time, I can give you more of the salient points within the document.
Board members, do you agree that would help us? For the kind of.
Yep.
Okay, all right, please.
But through that overall outline, I'll touch on what I think is more important within the document.
Yes.
Of course, we give the identification of threats and vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
You obviously have precipitation and flooding is really the underlying issue that we look at. And when you look at that, what's also been provided is obviously you have the FEMA federal documents that identify where your 100-year floodplains are, and possibly the 500-year floodplains. As we've been seeing is that it's been reoccurring that certain storms, certain intensity storms are reaching the 500-year level of flooding conditions in many areas. The DEP, as a result of some of the more recent storms, I think Ida was actually a storm that represented an additional area above and beyond the 100-year floodplain. So the NJDEP went back and reviewed data associated with that and came up with actually changed their regulations for the design flood elevation to be an additional 2 feet above the current 1 foot freeboard that they asked for above the design flood elevation, or excuse me, above the floodplain. So they established that design flood elevation plus these now 2 more feet above that. They're anticipating that some of those areas may, or some of that extra flood condition may occur in the future as a result of some of the changes in the climate. So therefore, that has been identified in this document from an informational purposes standpoint. So you'll see an actual a map within this document. It's on page 19. I'm sorry, it's on page 18, figure 7, where in yellow we show what the Rutgers GIS department assisted the DEP in preparing a identification of potential areas. And again, this is not regulatory, so I wanted to stress that. But in that map, and I will be giving part of this document, will have larger maps as well. But for purposes of a draft, I figured I would circulate it without the maps at this time. But I can provide those as PDFs for the board in case you're interested in zooming in on certain areas and seeing what might be impacted. But what this shows is additional areas above and around those floodplain areas that could potentially be affected. And again, they only used regional mapping to estimate where that additional 3 feet might be. So that's why it's not regulatory. It's just for informational purposes. So that sort of flooding condition is being anticipated. We identified some of the parcels and the amount of parcels that could be impacted as a result of that. And then we talk about heat, increases in heat conditions. When you look at heat conditions, you then look at issues of potential vulnerable population. Do you have a aging of the population that's occurring where you may have people that might be more vulnerable to high heat conditions, where air conditioning is becoming even more prevalent and needed? But if someone is in a compromised condition, I'm trying to make sure that's not my phone interrupting the microphone. But yet the high heat conditions can create problems where if someone is vulnerable to high heat conditions, they may need shelter, potential cooling locations for that population. So that's been identified and a point that's been made in the document. Some of the drought conditions that may result in the area. Obviously, Allendale relies on well water, so that could be affected as a result of increases in drought or swings within precipitation rates. So that is something to keep in mind and to try to encourage more water conserving methods. Obviously, the building code includes water conserving methods, but could we, through site plans, require drip irrigation systems and systems that sense moisture in the soil so that you're not overusing irrigation during those drought periods to reduce the amount of demand on water? So that's another condition. One thing that I never thought would be a problem is issues of smoke, where we have wildfires, as we've experienced through the last summer and the summers before. There was conditions where smoke actually impacts our area. So that can also affect vulnerable populations, people who may be infirm or may have certain vulnerabilities. And then there's the frequency of those events, which can switch over time to more events closer together where your drainage areas don't get a chance to rebound as a result. That can increase flooding as a result of that. So that's all anticipated in this study. The build out, I'll skip over that. We talked about that because that's inconsequential. We then reviewed existing facilities. And for review of the existing facilities, we sat down with your various department heads to discuss where the vulnerabilities are within the municipality. And not only vulnerabilities that are impacted as a result of the 100-year floodplain, but we also looked at areas of critical services, whether it's your DPW or even some of your recreation and open space areas. Could they be further compromised by some of this flooding condition? And that's a possibility. So we looked at that, also flagged where you may have certain circulation impediments. As we all know, the rail line that runs through Allendale utilizes overpasses over our roadways, and those underpasses themselves can create issues where that could block off certain portions of the municipality. We obviously have a emergency management plan anticipating those potential blockages, but that's something to keep in mind as we move forward in looking at various improvements to our road network and area connections. That then leads to discussions about joint and shared services between municipalities. So in case we are cut off in certain areas, could those shared services help within those various areas of the municipality? In addition to that, we have our municipal parks. I did touch on that a moment ago, but they help to provide this sort of storage of floodwaters, but at the same time, the impacts and damage to those recreation areas could be compounded as a result of increased flooding. So that is something to keep in mind and thought of if there are improvements made to those open space features. Obviously, you have the celery farm. That's a major water containing area. It's obviously a wetland area within our community. It I would commend the prior planners within the municipality who anticipated that and purchased it for open space, because that provides that ability to absorb flooding conditions over time. Just going forward, some of the strategies that we're looking at, just to touch a few on these, is that the land use policies and goals, we're trying to encourage more sustainability, reduce impacts to floodplains, in some of the land use regulations, trying to enhance sustainability practices, watershed management of the various brooks. Some of the municipalities that I've been consulting with regarding these studies, we've been discussing the idea of desnagging and desilting some of the streams. I know that's the purview of the DEP, and the DEP has various rules regarding that, but yet I think it's time to call on the state to try to manage that from the standpoint of how siltation occurs. It's not just Allendale siltation, it's siltation that's occurring to the north of you as a result of you being a drainage basin for other areas. So that is something that needs to be considered and possible improvements made so that certain key areas are not backlogged or backed up as a result of that siltation or tree fells and things of that nature that might be blocking streams. Green infrastructure, tree preservation, how that relates to heating of the climate and the cooling of the climate. Obviously, trees do their benefits as a result of their transpiration that occurs and their absorption of water, but also keeping down erosion, soil erosion, and further siltation of the streams. So those are things that are identified. Community engagement, heat resilient infrastructure, green transportation initiatives, some data monitoring as we go forward to see what is being affected, what isn't, because some of this is really projected science of what might occur. So there's a need to monitor that as well. We touched on mutual aid. Post-recovery might be one condition that we take a look at where, for instance, if there is flooding conditions, trying to make sure things aren't creating mold problems or the like as a result of the flooding conditions. And then stormwater management. Obviously, this board deals with that all the time, trying to encourage infiltration and manage runoff. And then management of riparian area resources and control of invasive species. Invasive species sometimes imbalance the overall balance of the plant material or vegetation that occurs within the wetland areas and important riparian areas. We then touch on impacts to the master plan. I think a lot of these things are trying to encourage smart planning and sound planning within the overall master plan documents. Like I said, I touched on the land use plan. We have also touched on the housing element fair share plan, discouraging any further infill within those areas, reducing overall impervious coverage to try to reduce those impacts. Community facilities plan, trying to encourage reduction of potentially vulnerable facilities. Open space, the historic element of the master plan. And then we touch on various recommendations or policy standards that are identified within the various documents. And then made certain recommendations regarding maintain open space and impervious areas, consider permeable pavement, renewable energy resources, also consider electrical vehicle charging infrastructure where practical. Obviously, outreach programs to certain special needs or elderly population, and then awareness of secondary impacts and the need for, again, stormwater management. We then touched on the Bergen County master plan as well. And then, like I said, we'll have maps that are associated with this that the board can use as they review future documents and future applications. Thank you.
A lot of interesting things in there. Yeah, I mean, we all know that that with flooding has been an issue here in our town. I just wrote a couple quick things down, but we really should put together some comments back to you. But do we have, I know we talk about flooding, yada yada yada, but we don't need to call out anything relative to hurricanes or tornadoes or
No,
is that all part of this?
it's part of the extreme weather events. That's
Okay.
really what the category
That's the category.
identified.
Okay. Underbrush. I don't know, I got this thinking back.
I know you had
Sorry.
mentioned that. The key to that is significant wooded areas. I looked into that up there, relative to wildfire risk and Allendale low, the wildfire risk schedule. If we had large open space features that were fully wooded, let's say 10 acres or greater, then I think that sort of management plan, the state is trying to do through their forestry program to encourage people who have those large tracts of land to try to manage the underbrush, reduce the amount of fuel that's available on the ground. But at the same time, obviously, you can't compel a property owner to do the same, try to encourage them. But especially property owners that might have farmland assessment, let's say, on their property as a result of their wooded condition where they manage the forest. So that's something that I'm not so certain it really applies, although I think tree management is important. So a community forestry management plan can help reduce impact to power supply. Obviously, if you had dead limbs, things of that nature, it's a way for the municipality to possibly schedule improvements to public lands where you have trees. But also, if you have a community forestry management plan, I believe the state at this time has funds available to help prepare that plan, but also to help possibly pay for management of tree resources. So it helps reduce that impact as extreme events come through and potentially impact your infrastructure.
And that includes trees, excuse me, that are borough owned,
Right.
that are along,
Let's say along
streets,
right
10
of
feet
ways
off.
or public open space.
Okay.
That could also be part of the plan as well.
Oh, just for clarification for my own, most of the culverts that you took pictures of, okay, are county roads. It's more for the board and for other people to understand. They're county roads. Like you called out Brookside, you called out a couple of others. But they are the borough's responsibility, question mark?
That's where I would turn to your engineer.
Most of the culverts on the county road, the county's culverts.
Okay.
And if there are some unique situations, I'm not aware of any one specific example, but generally the bridges and the culverts on the county roads are the county's.
Okay.
culverts.
Because again, there's two that always, well, not necessarily culverts, but you did call it out here.
Right.
The Orchard and Crescent, those always flood.
Right.
But are they, I believe Crescent is county.
Orchard may not be.
Orchard, I think, is town, but I'm not sure.
That's where,
And-
the nuance associated with that is really just to call out those potential concerns, and that if it is county or town or borough, then I think what's important is just anticipating the need to make sure those things are being maintained.
Orchard is a county road.
It's
a county road. And, in the past with Crescent, at the intersection there, the county has come out, the county has done what they had to.
I see.
Excellent. Okay. Thank
I
you.
mean, there are some historic documents that, come across where that responsibility's been shifted from the county to the municipality years ago. So, there's a recorded instrument that puts the maintenance responsibility out of the county's hands. That's a different situation. But that's, generally speaking, bridges and culverts along the county roads.
And just kind of, I don't want to belabor this, but it's a question for you then. As we, like, in the winter, we're clearing county roads using municipal, but that's all figured out.
Correct.
Okay.
We-
I can't,
county
I'm just trying to get
independent.
everybody to understand.
Yeah.
Because if somebody says, hey, listen, why are we plowing it if it's a county road? And then,
So we plow county roads and we're reimbursed from the county to do so.
just so everybody understands. Thank you. Thank you. Board members, any questions with what's here? Okay. When do you need to be done?
It'll be good before the next meeting. And again, we could schedule things. It's still flexible with regard to schedule. But as you go through it, if in fact there are a lot of comments or questions, then maybe we need to have a work session to talk about it.
Okay, the mayor has a copy of this, obviously, and other. Tyler, do you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just distributed today, so I don't anticipate trying to.
No, of course.
Yeah,
no.
rush this through.
But I think as we did with the last one, that Amy wanted to compile everything together. So, board members, I request that you guys, well, and ladies, take a look at this. Take a look at this, provide comments to the mayor.
Or if they all go through Linda, maybe.
Or to, better, thank you. Or to Linda, and then Linda will forward them over to the mayor. I think better. Okay, but please, this is the first time we're seeing it. The land use that Ed provided to us, we provided some input to the mayor. But, I personally have done this multiple times with Ed, it's probably the third time with you going through this, so I was pretty satisfied in the in that was thorough. But as you pointed out, this is the first time that we're doing this, so please, if you guys could take a look at this and provide input to Linda also. Please, okay. Michael, I know that I know that you'll provide that for, right? Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. Seeing none. Any, we can move. All right.
Thank you.
Is there any, no, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to touch?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right. So now, next on our agenda is application file 2024-17, Michael Mall and Dana Marino, 246 Park Avenue, Allendale, 07401, block 2206, lot 7. The application is for a two-car garage and a two-story addition pursuant to 270-63 parentheses 3, 270-64C parentheses 2, and 270-57D. Now, this is a continuation of the public hearing of February 12th, and I believe there's also a meeting before that, so.
Correct.
Okay, so we are continuing. I know that there were some questions that the board had closed out. And we have another set of plans. And, we have to, I was sworn in the last time, I believe. But if you want to just do it again to be sure.
You were previously sworn in.
The first time.
The first time, wasn't you? So you remain under oath.
Okay.
You're still sworn in. And we can proceed at the chairman's pleasure.
Uh,
Put your name on the record and then we can commence, sir.
Michael Maley,
Yep.
do I need to say anything?
Just your address. Just we have your-
246 Park Avenue and
Okay, before we get into this, I'm gonna recuse myself from Mr. Yacarino. I'm out with the, all right, okay. So we have two people recusing. Thank you.
May I
Michael,
ask
you can stay. I'm sorry.
May I ask why?
Council, I'll let you throw that. Okay.
Well, one of the
Well, first-
recusals is technical. It's required because a council member is a class of member that cannot vote on an application that involves what's called D relief under the statute, which is use relief. The other member has chosen to recuse himself because he has familiarity with you on a personal level, and he feels it's more appropriate that he recuse from the application, which he's certainly entitled to do.
Okay. So, the last, I know you weren't here the last time your wife was here. So there were some changes that you made or that were made to the plan, that was provided to us.
Correct.
So how about you take us through the changes so that everybody understands what's going on?
Sure. So, I'd like to just start off by saying a few quick things that are related to that.
That's more than fair. Go ahead.
So just an explanation of what we have done. We've reduced every area of the addition again, since the last meeting, that you now have plans for, at the request of the board. We've reduced it as much as we think is possible, given, both the space available to us and what makes sense for those spaces that we're going to use. We removed an entity that we really didn't have any clarity on where it would be. So the generator is no longer a part of the plan. And we've gone through pretty much all the proper channels to ensure that the DEP has been satisfied with the plans. There's no issues there any longer. We've hired a planner at the request of the board. And we've done pretty much everything that has been asked of the board in reducing as much as we possibly can from the plans. Issues that set us apart, I think, is pretty much the big issue here. There's obviously, I've listened to the conversations of the meeting I was at last, where precedence is an issue, but there will, our existing garage is in an existing floodway. We have hardship due to the proximity to the brook, hardship due to the deficiency of the lot size,
and we have an abutting flag lot of unbuildable land that has no adjacent. No other lots that we can find now they'll have all four of those. So making precedence in this particular situation extraordinarily unlikely. It's a unique property. We all admitted that. I think that's the first thing that was discussed or mentioned by the board when we first had this meeting many, many months ago. And in conclusion to this, the plans are modest. I mean, our home is small, it's tight. The rooms, one of the comments previously was that, well, you have all these rooms. Well, they're cookie cutter rooms. These are not large rooms. I have a dining room table currently that blocks the flow from the kitchen to the other room. You know, we have no space. It's just an old house that has old issues. And we would just like to live in a sort of a modern style, keeping the way of the look of the house, and keeping, for that matter, the look of plans. The plans conform to Allendale at large, as well as the street itself. I've lived in Allendale literally longer than anybody in this room. I have no issue in changing Allendale to be anything more than what I've grown up in for it to be. So that's all I have to really say on the matter. If you do have specific questions about the reduction in the size of property, my architect is here if necessary, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can prior to that.
To be honest with you, I'd like to hear, because there was a lot that went on in the last couple of meetings, so I'd like perhaps before, after, if any other board members have questions on anything that they just heard, but I'd like to hear from the architect. No disrespect.
John, would you be so
Okay.
kind of do so?
All right, but do we have anything that we just heard from any of the board members, so we can go right into this? Yeah, all right. Please, now, it's also.
Yeah. You were previously sworn and qualified. You're still under oath. Your license remains current and in good standing in the state of New Jersey, I assume. I think what the board is going to want to hear, which was lacking from the applicant's testimony, is the delta of relief that was reduced by way of the revised plans. I think that would
Yes.
be primarily what, perhaps you should offer the board on direct.
Right, on the most recent plans that you have, C1, right corner chart, there. And it kind of gives you the history of where we've been, where we are now, over the last third division. So at the moment, we have 32.9% of gross building area. Whereas the previous meetings were at 36.1%, and in November meetings were at 38%. And the breakdown is there, as you can see. And on the latest plans, we broke down a little bit more to make it easier to understand what we're doing here on the plan. What we did was we noted, as you can see, I mentioned the last meeting, that a lot of this area is basically a garage space, bonus room over the garage. We reduced the garage by, I believe, about a foot or so at the back. So I don't think we want to make it any smaller than 22 feet. But suggest a little smaller than depth. You can see we've shaded in the area now. You can see the first floor area. That's the new additional first floor space. You look at the first floor plan, 448 square feet. If you look at the second floor plan, you have 200 and
The 253 or 255?
whatever that is, that's the number. So, and you can kind of see the shaded area, and that shaded area represents what's new. Which it only goes back, I think it's about 6'9", I believe it says, out the back of the house now. It's much less than what we had two renditions ago.
Just to add to that, that space is already a deck.
That is
We're not even expanding beyond where the deck is currently.
If you look at basement plan where it says living room above, you'll see a dashed line with 3 squares that are dashed. That's the existing deck. You can see the new addition basically goes to where the deck is now, about 10 and a half feet out back of the front of the house there. The addition is going to be up basically on columns. You can't have a basement, and so it's basically elevated, so there's no structure below it.
Essentially enclosing the current deck.
Basic.
I might not have it, that,
But we do have an easement on the,
Well, you know, I could stop. That was offered during testimony by your professional planner at the last meeting,
Okay.
and to the extent we're arguing hardship under relief under the statute, I think it's got to be a licensed professional, which you had already,
That's
so
fine.
you could certainly offer testimony, but it's lay testimony, it's not qualified expert, so I'm not sure what value it would have. Reiterated, but I think it's got limited value.
Okay, so you said you removed the generator.
we removed it. We're not, we're not gonna do that.
Any HVAC units are still on the side that was, feel okay with that. That's fine. Board members? Or before we do one, Michael, do you have any comments?
I mean, I don't disagree in testimony that I heard that, you know, the size of the different floors have been reduced, and what's building area has been reduced from the first application. Here's, you know, the calculations, are correct, the generator has been.
Chairman.
Please.
I did not hear the prior testimony, so I'm just commenting on what I've heard tonight. In the proposed reductions, did you now bring it back in line with the existing deck, or was that always part of the plan?
We brought it back to the over. Maybe extended 3 feet beyond. Something like that.
Previously? Okay.
Yeah, at least.
that's efficient.
Maybe 4.
John back slowly. This is the biggest change.
Okay.
Between last meeting.
Have you reduced any setback? Or they're the same?
Yes. We haven't reduced the, I don't have the previous, period setback is now, 3 feet. Okay, I don't have the previous. But obviously, yeah, it's further from the first now. Okay. Garage, well, the garage by the foot. Thank you.
And did you obtain the DEP permits, or you're still on?
I think they have a deadline that's not come up yet. Okay, to give it to us. That's what the engineer had said. It's just a matter of getting.
I just for clarification,
Yeah,
you don't have it in
I'm not
hand, you don't have it in hand yet, but you've had discussions.
correct. The plan, excuse me, the engineer has.
Or just, no, I need, you said something, it's been approved?
I don't have the certificate.
You don't have the certification letter,
Correct.
but it's been approved.
As far as I'm aware, that's what
We've given them everything that they've asked for, and I think it's just a matter of time to get it from the state at certain amount of days.
to give it to us. So, the engineer has been handling that and taking care of it, but yes.
On these plans.
On these plans, correct.
Fourth is actually favorable. It will be subject to all other agency approvals being in place and ultimately reviewed by Mr. Breland as well. So, the applicant couldn't proceed until they have all other agency approvals in place. Right now would apply with county, SCD, anything including DEP in this case. So they would be at a standstill acting on this approval with permits until that is in with an unconditional permit release from that agency.
When those permits, when that approval comes in. Then just us or your party.
I could look at it, but it's gonna be sent, the town will be copied on it. The applicant will be sent the permit, the municipality will be copied on it, and I think it'd be prudent for Mike to take a look at it, make sure it was cleared and it matches up to the approved plans, if these plans.
And any work undertaken under a benefit that would be subject to enforcement or oversight by the DEP.
Right. Yeah, they'll retain jurisdiction.
And the one thing I wanted to point out to you is that the garage, the existing garage, especially given the testimony. But, right, so I wanted to point that out to you. But in this plan, what is being done, right, that garage. This is, right.
As I understood it, was that garage in the floodway?
It is, yes.
And it's being removed out of the floodway. That's even more critical, I think, as a benefit in the application. What could consider?
Now, I think if you have a copy of it, you can see on third page. There it is. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
And the new addition's completely out of it. Obviously, they are adding to the structure, but elevating it above and beyond the floodplain.
Yes.
So thereby, obviously, DEP would require that anyway, to make sure the flood can continue. That area.
Like as you'll see, there's a line here, 25 feet from top of bank.
Right.
Which goes through the existing garage. Okay.
Yep.
And then the 50-foot riparian zone. Okay. Without offer any comment on that. I'll put you on the spot. I know you.
Yeah, just in looking at this, that would be the one thing I would point out is obviously the garage is being removed from the floodway. That obviously improves certain conditions, reduces impact to that critical area. The new garage, though, will not be elevated, right? That obviously has that foundation. You don't have flood vents. You will have flood vents, so therefore the water can continue under the garage. Looks like impervious coverage is being slightly reduced or increased. Okay, it's slightly reduced by 0.2, right? So therefore runoff is being technically improved. They are putting in a dry well.
Yep.
Those are things the board can look at. Consider in their deliberations. Board members.
I think the problem that we had last time was just the size of the house for the lot. This was setting off the alarms, but essentially you're going from 21% coverage to 33, right? And variance of the law is 25. So you're a third above the lot recommendation. So I mean, you're incrementally coming back, but it's still a fairly big delta.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement tonight, there's significant hardships that are just the way that it is. The large percentage of the property of which we're actually removing a structure on is unbuildable anyway. So we already have a lot of unbuildable space on the property that we can't even, if you were to subject that into the space itself, I think that for lack of more information on this, I just think that our addition is very modest. And if you look at the plans carefully, if you actually come to the house and see, there's nothing to the left of us. There's a house in the back that's not going to be affected by it whatsoever. And we're almost literally covering exactly the same amount of footage on the ground. There's nothing, we're barely expanding onto the property itself. The only thing that's kicking us over is because we're actually making a second floor above the garage. That's really it. And that's not going to be affecting any sort of visual plane. It's not going to be harming any sort of view from the street.
It's a hardship discussion. We had this discussion as well, and I think what we came to is most of the situations you identified were situations that existed when you bought the property 17 years ago. So I'm not sure that defines it as hardship. I mean, you knew what you were getting into.
I take some offense to that. I was a first-time home buyer. I had no idea, and I had no idea what my family was going to be like and how we were going to grow. I had no idea.
I'm just telling you what the rules are.
I understand, but I think that a hardship, not knowing what I was getting into is. I also didn't know I was going to be living there. But we've decided to stay there.
(7.9% over the 25%). Which is a third if you do the percentage.
So you keep saying going for 21 now, but I know
Well,
for 21, but 25 is the max.
25 is the real number.
Right, so,
Agreed.
and I gotta say that the addition over the garage, if it was finished space, or if it was unfinished space, we still have the same exact roof there. Because what are you gonna build a flat roof on the house? Not gonna happen. I don't think they're really that, people dropping the plate, bringing it down. What is that? Last couple, did plans. It would be the same massing that we would have regardless. We took that floor space out for forming. But it would still be looking to look the same.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that if we're kind of charged to act well and kind of live up to the variance of the town. What we're seeing is this is a big house with a size lot. Even though there's some of the restrictions, but they've always been there.
I do appreciate the changes you guys have made in the three, renditions. And it is improved greatly and, I understand the argument of, it makes sense to get the garage out of the floodway, you're moving it, even though, it's within, the permitted side yard setback, you're making an improvement and putting it out of the floodway. I agree, it is a modest addition that you're adding on in the back. And the changes, and again, I appreciate the changes you guys have made since the first rendition of this. I feel it fits within the neighborhood.
I think there's a large benefit to essentially taking the garage out of the floodplain, especially since we've been talking about the impacts of the hazardous vulnerability study. And this kind of like falls in line with what we're trying to do. I understand the almost 8% increase in GBA, but I think the benefit of removing that garage, considering it's in an area where it's basically unusable. Removing that far outweighs the limited space you're going to have over the garage. The roof line actually lines up. You can't make it any lower because it's even with the other ridge. If you made it lower, it's going to actually out of place architecturally. It won't look good. So I don't know that. I don't know that would have any obliged to do. There are improvements. There is stormwater management proposed for reinforcing.
Anybody else?
The massing of the garage, the roof line, if you're gonna have that anyway, square footage is essentially what's putting this over the top. Yeah. So, I think if you didn't have that massing, it would look good in elevation, yeah. So, I concur with what the architect said.
Nothing unless there's any questions of the proofs.
I mean, I have to agree, you know, I'm big on takedown. And I think it's huge. The renditions are great. I think you guys have worked with us, done a lot of work. I just wanted to make sure I'm not breaking chops on the DEP stuff. I just wanted to make sure
No, that's fair.
that, okay, that
Yeah.
we're not,
Then we'll move forward.
well, yeah, yeah,
But yes, we're good.
okay. I mean, I just think it's you're not, if I hear what you're saying, right, and looking at everything that I studied before tonight, and I believe you substantiated it, essentially, you're just putting a living room over the existing deck.
Yes.
Meaning
Yeah.
the deck footprint, correct, exactly, deck footprint, okay. So you're not going any further back there, though. The only thing that's really going back is the garage. If you're looking at the back of the house.
Actually, the garage comes up.
The garage. Take out the old garage, what I'm trying to say is the garage. I mean, I think it's a big improvement. I do also am concerned, you know, the FARs and everything else, but I also recognize that because of the floodplain, you have a troubled piece of property. I recognize that. And I'm just trying to weigh everything. You know, with this decision. So. Yes. Any other comments from the board before I open it to the public? Okay. Seeing none. Public, this is a part where the public can comment on the testimony that you heard tonight relative to this application. So please, if you have anything come up, state your name. Okay, seeing none, I bring it back to the board. Further discussion. I said we're ready to vote. All right. Larry, I'm gonna put you on the record, put you on the spot again. All right. So I want to make sure I have a motion. Whoever makes the motion, that's all. Right, okay. So would in mind.
Okay, so,
Good, as best
yeah, certainly.
summarizing.
certainly. So the board is voting on, in addition to its bulk relief, and there's FAR relief, which is D-use relief. The applicant's planner went through the testimony at length at the prior hearing. You know, the credibility and credence given to that is up to each individual board member. You heard Mr. Stichus offer his thoughts on behalf of the board this evening in connection with the fee relief. So the motion by a board member in the affirmative would be a motion to approve the application inclusive of the variance plan, which includes fee relief for floor area ratio deviation to the extent of 7.9% to be exact, above what the code allowance is, in addition to the bulk relief for the proposed addition of the property and to the single-family dwelling structure. This will all be subject to the standard conditions of approval, which is going to include all other agencies that will apply. In this case, it does include the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So that will be included as a condition of the approval. I do not have the benefits of my notes from the prior public meeting. I don't recall if we talked about specific conditions, sir, with your engineer, with your architect, or your planner. I know your wife, I think, was here at the last meeting. I don't recall if you were here or not, but what we will do is, if the board acts favorably, we will draft a memorializing resolution. That draft will be circulated before the adoption of the meeting. We will share with your team to make sure that it reconciles with your memory and recollection as to what was agreed to on the record. The record's going to control anyway objectively. It's not going to be subjective. We're not going to negotiate wordsmithing. It's either accurate or not as to conditions. And that will be memorialized at the next public meeting. But the motion of the board would be, if it's a vote in favor, it would be to grant the floor area ratio relief as well as the bulk relief associated with this proposal. Along comes with it the stormwater management controls, obviously, the removal of the existing garage, which would support and mitigate the deviations proposed and support the variance grant. So it would essentially be the plan you're viewing tonight, which I think has a revision date of March 5th of this year. At least the civil plans do. I'm not sure Mr. Brzezinski's plans do.
I have this, but then I have this.
Yeah, I've got a
So,
revision date.
please. Because I was actually gonna call that out.
I see a March 5th revision date on the Hauser engineering plans, and it was a reference to remove the generator, and it was revised to correspond to your updated architecture. Mr. Brzezinski. See a last
Pardon-
revision date of
pardon.
March 5th, 2025 on Hauser's plan. Yeah. The site plans are going to ultimately control with the calculations. So,
Your plans, pardon me for a moment. Your plans, I have number 3 dated 2/28.
Correct.
Okay, that's where I was getting.
yeah, that we have as well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, the civil engineering plan is going to control for purposes of resolution compliance and the calculations that are allowed in the dimensions. So that's the board will be voting on in the affirmative. A vote to deny would simply be a vote in disagreement with the proposal. The proofs weren't satisfied, and a motion would be made to that effect.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, board members, any questions on what you just heard? Okay, we have a motion.
I will make a motion,
Give it all, have it.
given all caveats.
Okay, and against plans.
That
And
please.
3525 from Hauser Engineering.
That's, I'm sorry,
The architecture for last February 28th, correct?
yes,
228.
228, and then the third page showing, was that 35 or 39? You said
35.
35. Okay. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Vice Chairwoman Bergen,
Yes,
Board Member Petrino,
Yes.
Board Member Gugliaro,
Yes.
Board Member Dallo.
Yes.
Chairman Tirico,
Yes.
Board Member Butler,
No.
alternate Conti.
Yes.
Next.
The motion passes. You have an approval. Congratulations. We will memorialize the resolution likely the next public meeting, either April 21st or April 23rd. You do not need to be here for that. You certainly are free to be here. We will share that document with you, your professional team, for review, like I said, to make sure that it's consistent with the record. And then from there, you move to its permanent once you satisfy all conditions of the approval, of which will include the NJDEP.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think, so. But thank you.
Thank you. I can do more homework.
Thank you. But thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll see you next month,
At least the 21st.
21st. Thank you. Did the record show we're back with everybody, okay? All right. All right, next application is file number 2025-01, Stephanie and Sean Morton, 73 Forest Road, Allendale, 07401, block 2206, lot 7, and the application is the addition of a garage pursuant to 270-64A, parentheses 2. How are you? Yes. So,
Yeah, worked out. I wasn't really here. I previously, but you mentioned you don't have time for it. Remember, there was no questions, so I was here for that.
Okay. All right.
Just I was able to, yeah.
So,
I know we expect you to testify,
Yeah.
sir. We expect both of you folks to testify.
Just
I'll just shoot.
okay.
So, if you wouldn't mind, you could raise your right hand, Mr. Missy, we'll swear you in again for this case fresh. It's starting over. Gentlemen, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you would, starting with you, sir, would you state your name for the record, spell your last name, and provide an address?
Sure. Sean Morton, Morton, 73 Forest Road. John Uzinski, MUSINSKI, 215 Mawal Road, Holland.
Yeah, Mr. Wazinski, just for the record on this case, because it's standalone.
Yes.
You're a licensed professional architect in the state of New Jersey. Your license is current and good standing. You've testified before this board in Allendale as well as other boards in the state of New Jersey. If there's any challenges to his qualifications, now good time.
Okay. All right. Mr. Morton, welcome. We're just gonna
Sure, I can start.
okay, if you would tell us what you want to do.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll give you a little preamble. Just thank you for the opportunity today. So yes, my wife Stephanie, and I, we've lived at 73 Forest Road for about actually 10 years now. Hey, unbelievable. If you're familiar, we're on Forest Road. We're about 7 or 8 houses down from the high school, just perpendicular to the road. We're the greenhouse there. We love our home. We love everything about it. The previous homeowners in roughly 2007 did a significant renovation of the home. We love the aesthetics. We want to maintain that. About 3 years ago, we put significant effort into our backyard, landscaping, did a bunch of work there. We really haven't touched the home though. What we would like to do is expand our bedroom across our existing attached garage. So what we are trying to do right now is maintain the aesthetics of the home that we love so much, while still adding some additional square footage. Now, however, we ran into a slight issue with the side yard setbacks of the home, added roughly about 500 extra square feet. So with the current gross building floor area, our existing side yard setback requirement is 34. We're at 36.2 on the left, and 35.8 on the right. Now, however, with the new calculated side yard setback, with that, I think it's about 521 square feet that's added, it expands setback to 30. So, in general, what we're trying to do is, one, we're not making any changes to the existing footprint of the home. We're building over the existing attached garage. We're not increasing our proximity to the side property lines. We are, like I said, proposing to extend over the existing. So, overall, we love the look of our home right now with as we and last but not least, I mentioned 3 years ago, we put significant investment landscaping on effectively all around the home, including on our side yards. So, John actually helped me understand this a little better visually today. It's roughly one corner of 521 square feet. It's roughly 13 square feet. That is really out of compliance.
But it's still over, as you pointed out, it's still over the existing footprint, so you're only going up, you're not
Only going up. We're not extending, not excavating, not cheap.
So the aesthetics of the house, what is the purpose of the addition? For more room or-
Space. Our current master bedroom is actually, I wouldn't even call it a master bedroom. It's one of those where we do have a bathroom in the bedroom, can't both fit in the bathroom. We have a closet that's not even a walk-in closet. So what we're trying to do is really just actually make it more of a true master bedroom.
is that really a hardship?
Should be.
So again, for me, I think the big thing you're not changing.
You're not coming out anymore in the front there,
Yeah, that's
right?
correct.
It's aligned.
Over time, so if you look at our current garage, we have a sort of nice big frame shape both sides. What I mean,
Building. So how much higher does the bridge on the garage get with the addition? It doesn't change the
lower by. North elevation.
The north elevation picture, right? So it looks like you're keeping that front A.
That front A, right?
Which
We
you're
have
moving
a
into the
similar
back.
A, middle of the home as well. Everything to the left has been actually. Siding, the right. So it's just that block. Block above the garage, but it's saying it's 13 square feet, it's a little triangle. That way the front flat. And we can fly out.
There's attic space up there now?
There is, it's unfinished crawling. Access. No, it's on.
From the main part there.
From the garage.
Oh, from the garage.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Salt.
Okay.
You are making some changes, I guess it looks like, to the interior too, just for that.
That's the bedroom areas that get converted, so that's the bathroom, the laundry, to bring it upstairs. That's all right.
Is it split level?
It is technically a split up. It doesn't look like one, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, we did have the opportunity to review the application, we visited the site. And we did also have the benefit of being involved with the plot plan soil movement that was approved in 2022 for the outdoor entertainment area. When that plan was developed, there was an increase in coverage and stormwater measures that were installed to address that with the buffer landscape.
And that all complied because it
That
didn't come
all,
before this
that all,
board.
that all complied, it didn't come to the board, but, you know, they triggered the threshold for requiring that. I guess just the two questions that I have is, I assume, you know, based on the way the property appears, and the way the applicant maintains the property, that the addition is gonna be finished in a similar fashion. It's gonna be seamless, and you will be able to, same colors, same materials.
we are meticulous. Property.
And is there any plans to put any outdoor lighting on the addition?
Not on the addition.
Those are,
Order is fine.
that was all addressed, and they're not increasing impervious coverage. Said there was a stormwater management system that was installed, and impervious areas were, you know,
Solid drainage is all fine.
not aware of any issues out there.
Neighbors to your left.
Yes.
If you're going up, will there be any visibility to their property from where the bedroom is going to be and vice versa into your home, or are there trees going up?
There are trees, there are mature trees along the left side of the home. And we planted about 20, 30 on that side that are growing up to Jim. Pretty well. That side of the home as well. Walking commons.
Okay. Facing your neighbors to your left. Okay.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay. Seeing none, I open it up to the public. Any questions, comments on the testimony that you've heard? Okay, seeing none, I bring it back. Additional comments, questions from the board? Okay. And I have a motion for a vote. Given, a motion. All right, thank you.
What was that, please?
Andy? Council, we don't need, I mean, all the usual standard, so no.
Well, the only thing I heard this evening, and Mr. Moore, I assume you agree, is confirming, that the materials will match the existing on the addition, if there's no outdoor lighting proposed on the addition. And that's all I heard that was stipulated too. You're gonna have to honor the plans in any event, which call that out as such, so. But otherwise, the standard condition.
Thank you, and again, you heard the previous something. With the way we put everything together. Okay. So, thank you. So do we have a second?
I'll second.
Vice Chairwoman Bergen?
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalo?
Yes.
Board Member Petrino?
Yes.
Board Member Gugliaro?
Yes.
Councilman Yakarino?
Yes.
Board Member Dallo?
Yes.
Chairman Tirico?
Yes.
Board Member Butler?
Yes.
Alternate Conti?
Yes.
Congratulations. Thank you.
It's the green public access.
I charge a resort fee. Actually, I know the people who bought the house. Green, right? Yeah. But a lot in. They did a great job. They really did. They put a lot. We want to maintain what they did. Very nice. Thank you. Good luck to both. Thank you so much. Thanks. Made it a lot easier for you this time, right?
Yes.
Balance, and a hard one to use.
Thank you, board.
We try. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. Our next application file 2025-02, Edward Yeager and Jennifer Levine, 18 Wilton in Allendale, block 511, lot 18. The application is for an addition to a single-family home pursuant to 270-64B, parentheses 2, side yard setback. Okay.
Will you both be testifying, do you think? Let's raise same time. Would you both raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? If you could please state your name, spell your last name for the record, provide an address, and, assuming one of you folks is an expert, we'll qualify you shortly.
Jennifer Levine, 18. Rachel, RACOLT, 240 West Crescent, Street, Allendale, New Jersey.
All right, we're good. Ladies, please sit. Yeah. Okay.
I will be presenting as an architect this evening on behalf of People Architects. I hold a Bachelor of Architecture from Penn State. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey for several years, and my license will take good standing. Tonight will be my first night presenting in front of a board, as Mary currently traveling abroad. So my first testimony Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have said that.
Mary just off to Paris, and I'm here to do the work.
No, fair. I'm sure she has training. You've learned from her well.
Yeah.
She's very good at presenting support. She knows the questions that we ask. I'm sure that this will be the same thing. So, congratulations to studying under her. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And we'll try to.
We appreciate it.
Okay. So, please tell us. Okay.
So I'm here tonight on behalf of Jennifer and Edward for a variance of 18 Wilton Drive. This property is in the AA zone where 26,000 square foot lot is required and the lot conforms. This is an existing ranch style home that our client desires to maintain. We seek to add a primary bedroom with ensuite bathroom and closets as well as small office, laundry room, and powder room. We're proposing unfinished basement below. The entirety of the addition will be added to confirm with the required side yard setback in the open left side yard. Due to the off-center placement of the house on the existing lot, we're seeking relief for a side yard setback for the existing structure on the right-hand side of the property.
I'm going to quickly walk you through our major points of the zoning chart, so I'd be happy to answer any questions on the criteria that I don't comment on. The new required side yard setback is going to be 23 feet. On the left-hand side, that is receiving the addition, the existing side yard setback is at 69.2 feet, where the new is going to be 39 feet. So on the left side yard, we are conforming with the new side yard setback. On the right side yard, the existing is at 21.2 feet, and this is going to remain as is. So this is the variance that we will be seeking tonight. The gross building area allowed is 21.8%. The existing is 9.6%, where we are going to be proposing 12.7%, which is well under the allowed. The impervious coverage allowed is 34.1%. The existing is 16.3%, and we are proposing 19.3%. Again, well under the allowed. Once we realized how off-centered the existing home was and the lot, in order to have the least impact on the zoning ordinance, we proposed building in the open left side yard. And we also proposed an addition that would keep the gross building and impervious coverage well below the allowed. Due to the sliding side yard setback, the existing right side yard becomes non-conforming. And just for your clarification, that portion of the house that is now non-conforming is approximately 33 square feet of their current kitchen and 14 square feet of the covered front porch. I also have some renderings, if it's okay to approach the board and enter those in the front.
Wow, the first time an expert witness testifies, it's always the best performance you'll ever see. If they're shooting this for 30 years, it'd be terrible. So this is, it's not going to be better than this.
Wow.
I have all the right.
Here you go.
The level of preparedness is like no other.
You hit it on the head, Larry.
So we'll mark this it's a deck of a few sheets, it looks like.
Yeah, it's 3 sheets.
We'll mark it collectively as A1. If you could just identify it, please, for the record.
I'm distributing A1, which is sketch 9, 10, and 11 of exterior rendering.
Thank you.
Picture always helps.
How many do you have?
13.
Oh, okay, so you have a okay.
I
I was gonna say, so we can
reached
share.
out to Linda ahead to confirm. No, those three together. No, I don't think so. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. So as you guys can see from the renderings, we do seek to update the exterior of the home with new siding, trim, and updated windows. The scale and aesthetic of the proposed renovation is keeping with the neighborhood, further enhancing the character of the neighborhood, and does not impair or the intent or the purpose of the zoning ordinance. In conclusion, our goal is to minimize the impact to the neighbors to the right by proposing no new work where the house sits closer to the property line. The entirety of the addition sits to the left of the home, and all new work sits within the required setback. The hardship here is sort of the off placement of the house on the lot. When the home was originally built, it was built to the zoning regulations at that time. Since then, the zoning regulations have changed, requiring compliance for the existing structure would mean costly and impractical changes. So our proposed design is respectful of the current zoning regulations, and we're here to request a variance to allow the existing structure to remain as it currently is. There's no negative impact on the neighborhood. Thank you.
Can I ask, I noticed that, why wasn't it pulled forward? Why wasn't it, kind of maybe everything line across what I'm calling the front of the house? I guess that's the garage side.
Yeah, so at the garage side, we're keeping it pushed back a little bit so that we're not tearing apart too much of the existing bedroom. You can envision if you would slide that proposed addition forward to get the hallway into the new primary bedroom, start to cut through some of the existing bedrooms that we're hoping to remain.
Okay, time out a second. Which drawing?
Oh, sorry, I'm
That's,
looking
no,
at
that's okay.
A4.
That's okay. Thank you.
So you sort of see the proposed the darker drawing on the left-hand side. So we're really pushing it as far as we can without starting to tangle into the existing.
Um, we're just trying to. I just want to understand. Like, I just want to understand where some of the thinking was. No disrespect to the plan this party, but why you could keep the hall where it is, okay? Why not flip this such that the primary? But in other words, what I'm trying to understand is why is there this area?
The sort of the U-shaped area?
Yeah.
Just to avoid building unnecessary square footage, and sort of keeping the actual square footage that we're adding to the property in check. And the backyard is nice and private, so sort of prioritizing the views back from the office into looking into the nice rear yard, and just creating a nice space for plantings along the front.
Okay. But you could keep the office where it is. You could keep the bath where it is. But if you were to take the primary bedroom, kind of flip-flop the laundry in the primary bedroom and put it to the right and eliminate that U section. This is just, we're not picking this apart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
No, I don't have a
But
problem. I'm
yeah.
just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It doesn't affect the variance.
Huh.
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Windows,
It doesn't.
just-
Yeah, the
And
existing windows. are
Okay.
key here.
And-
Seems
Yeah,
pretty
That's what I want to know.
Windows in the bed.
Okay.
And the garage, you wouldn't want to build to that, against that existing garage.
It seems pretty
Yeah, it's
straightforward.
an easier foundation detail if we build further away from the existing garage. And then this allows us to keep our egress windows in our bedrooms and still have fully functioning bedrooms in the kids without starting to block the access to daylight.
Okay.
And you're showing an AC unit in that area too, right?
Yes, that is where the existing AC unit is, and the fan is just to fit as.
Straightforward.
The trees on the right-hand side, are those existing or those will be planted?
They are no longer there, actually.
So, I'm looking here, right? And I think it shows the whole line of pine trees, which seems reasonable because it's privacy, it's at the front door. You're saying they're not there anymore.
They are not there anymore. They were, hemlocks that had reached like 40 feet, and they were in bad shape, and so we're going to plant.
So are you gonna replace them, I guess, is the obvious question.
Yes, working on a plan, but we want to finish whatever construction we're able to do with that.
Understood, yeah.
And if you were to take the new addition in the existing house, then you slid it over, you would be able to maintain actual side yard setbacks on either side that apply. Right?
So the side yard setback on I'm not sure if I'm understanding. but
Well,
please
I'm
correct
just
me if
saying,
I'm not.
I'm just saying, 'cause in theory,
Yeah,
because the hardship, you're tight, the existing building's tight to the right side of the lot, and it's 21.2.
Mhm.
And you're increasing, the sliding scale, you're increasing the square footage, so it changes the side yard setbacks. I'm just saying, if you didn't have the hardship of the house being where it is, you just say,
Yeah,
built
but
an entirely new house with the same square footage, you'd be able to comply if you centered it on the lot.
exactly.
It
If
would
the current
come out.
house would have been built 2 feet over to the left, then the entire project would have been worked. It's just the nature of the existing house being built off-centered on the lot. So the addition actually does a nice job of sort of rebalancing and recentering the house in the lot, and sort of reinforces the rhythm of the existing neighborhood. Sort of see the hole in the side yard as you drive down the street now.
I just have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it because it's more of the topography and the drainage that's gonna take place on the left side because the elevation changes, pretty drastically. It goes from, like 94 down to 88. And so I know you guys have a Coltech chamber design But are there is there any drainage proposed that would mitigate any water runoff onto the neighbor's property, because it's pretty substantial?
Right, I could not comment on that, so any concerns with that, the, civil engineer, Sean McClellan would be happy to work through Mike Friedland with that on the site plan review.
Yeah, there's actually two existing downspouts on that side of the house that discharge into the lawn area, and I guess ultimately make its way down the hill, whatever doesn't get absorbed into the grass area.
Even I'm talking even the sheet flow now, as you push everything
Right.
over.
And it looks
Right.
like, it looked like to me that there was some kind of swale or berm that existed. I don't know if it's on the subject property or on the neighbor's property, but you know, we would, in addition to, providing the content, we would work with we would ask our engineer to take a look at those existing downspouts and see if there could be some grading in the side yard that could capture some of that water and keep it from going directly to.
Do you see a need for drywall?
They have provided the three.
Sorry, looking at.
Yeah, there's actually they're Coltech chambers.
Oh, the Coltech chambers, okay, so those,
That's equivalent.
that should be enough.
They've been sized for I think 3 inches of rain on whatever area like typically require. Appears that at least, one of the corners of the proposed additions that is tied into them. We would ask the engineer to take a look at tying in some additional clears, maximizing the use of the Coltech stand, avoid any potential impacts of the.
And you agree with it?
Yeah.
Those concerns to the more towards the.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there may be an opportunity where two of the existing downspouts from the existing roof, their own discharge on the ground, maybe one of those can be captured and reduce the runoff.
Any other comments from board members?
And it looks like you're modifying, the existing entry just to upgrade some of the aesthetics on the exterior, right?
Yeah, proposing new columns out there and updating, trim and siding in that area to match with the rest of the house as well. That's sort of how the unified color palette.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I open this up to the public. Sir? Yes, sir, please. Come up, please state your name. And address, thank you.
Certainly. Have a seat next to the engineering. We'll share the space with you.
Okay.
Don't fight.
It is
He's a nice
nice.
fellow. Hold your wallet.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. So help me God. George Crowley, live at 22 Wilton Drive in the borough. On the tax,
name, Mr. Crowley?
Huh?
Can you spell your last name? Mr.
CROWLEY,
Your address again? I'm sorry.
22 Wilton Drive.
Thank you.
And I'm on the tax map, block 511, lot 19. So I'm the next door neighbor on the right. Okay.
Sir, you may sit,
Okay, thanks.
please.
So I got the notice. It was Greek to me. I called. They said you can come down and take a look at the plans. Looked at the plans. I had questions. I managed to get a copy of the plans. I called in an engineer, family member with 50 years of experience, civil engineer, licensed professional engineer, happens to be my brother-in-law. He was a vice president at Con Edison. He was in charge of construction management. So well capable to take an assessment, give his impression. Spent a few hours. He's been in my house 100 times. in deference to my neighbor, you know, he said, of all the times I've been in your house, he said, I never realized that your neighbor's house is sideways. I mean, you know, in deference to the architect, she was very nice, but these houses would not have been built the way they were built in 1961. I know that for a fact. Because my neighbor who's lived at block 51120, he sat on the board, he was an engineer. And he was a victim of the same problems. So, to the issue of the improvement, first of all, there's a privacy issue. My engineer, he measured the distance between the houses. There's an 80-foot differential. It's 70 foot, approximately 70 foot from their house to my property line. And then I'm 10 foot from the property line. So apropos to this proposal, the first 14 years in my house, and I've been in my house 43 years, the first 14 years I spent chasing water. Okay, and that's because of what happened in 1961 when the buildings were built, Jennifer's house, my house, and my neighbor who sat on the board. So most of us had water problems. I chased water for 14 years, did all sorts of things. French drains in the garage, some pumps in the utility room, trenching off the front side of the house with PVC pipe. Had the land contoured so water would not accumulate and run away. And I thought I had everything done. I moved it to a dry well, and then the dry well overflowed. So a town contractor lived in the town at the time. He invited the town engineer to come out. We went through this all again. They gave me a permit. If you came and looked at my house, you would see right along the driveway, there's a drain, and the drain captures water and it runs it out to the waste cistern in the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Street sewer.
But back to the application. And we haven't had water. We haven't had water. But my brother-in-law came out and he looked and he took measurements. He knows my house. And his first impression was, where's the hardship? Well, we'll get back to that. And he said, you know, you have a privacy issue because they're proposing to move half the distance between your house and their house towards you. But I'm worried, and he was worried about the substantial risk of flooding. And it's not inconsequential. And I didn't hear the architect speak to that. So that's another thing. Armed with all of that information, I sat down with a lawyer. We talked for a couple of times. And, he got a little bit more Machiavellian. He said, what's the purpose of this room? Well, we found out tonight, but even that's not forthcoming in the plans that I was able to get from the building department. So they want to put in another bedroom and an office. I suspected an office. But the way these plans are prepared and postulated to you, this looks like a hop, skip, and a jump to a carriage house. And my lawyer said to me, supposing in 5 years, you may not want to deal in hypotheticals, but people moved on this street because of the amount of acreage you have. I have 2/3 of an acre. I know one of my neighbors has 0.6 acres. I'm not sure of the acreage that Mr. Yeager and Ms. Levine have, but it's more than a half an acre. When you mitigate first the privacy factor, if you're going to put in what could ultimately be a cottage house, well, then you're going to have a rental cottage houses on a street like this should be reserved for an aged family member or a daughter. And what happens if in 5 or 10 years, the houses flip twice and you have two renters in that house?
Mr. Crowley, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to keep this on track for the
Yeah.
hearing, the applicant's proposal is
I know.
not for a
I know that.
secondary principal dwelling structure. It's part of the single-family residential dwelling structure.
I understand.
It's part, so it's not even dealing in hypotheticals. That's not the relief they're here for this evening. They're here for an addition to the house. And while I appreciate you speaking to your brother-in-law, it sounds horrible. You sat down with a lawyer. That's never fun. But all that being equal, you're the only one here this evening. So your grievance is going to come from your perspective as the abutting property owner. And I'm not here as an advocate for the application, but looking at the plans, the relief necessary on this application is the opposite side of the property, not your side of the property, if you're lot 19. But that being said, the stormwater concern, I think, resonates with everybody. That has to be addressed and built in the field to the satisfaction of the municipal code, the satisfaction of all standards and regulations that apply, and it's all subject ultimately to review of the municipal engineer, the land use board engineer, including the gentleman sitting to your left. The carriage house issue, I think we should probably end that part of the discussion. That's not what's being proposed. So for time's sake and efficiency, I think that's not really fodder for
All
discussion.
right, let me just finish up then. Because basically what I'm hearing is because I didn't come with expert witnesses, which I called, and I spoke to Mr. Hackett, and I said, do I have to come with a lawyer? Do I have to come with an engineer? And he said, no. So if you're changing the game plan.
No. Let me correct any misunderstanding you have. You don't need to come with an expert. Had you come with any experts, you could certainly put on a case in chief in opposition to the application. I'm not sure the arguments you're posturing now would resonate whether or not it comes from a qualified expert or a lay witness. There's no carriage house being proposed.
Okay.
The stormwater management is going to comply with the code, and what they want to use the box for, if you will, as long as it's part of a single-family dwelling structure use, it's beyond your purview and the board's purview. Doesn't matter if a lawyer's here saying it or an engineer.
Well, but who else's purview in the town is it? Where is the?
It's regulated by the land development code as to what uses are permitted within a zoning district.
Well, they have other remedies aside from this. They could go up. They have air rights. And I don't see why they're not going up. Why should they come 40 feet towards my house and present a problem of flooding?
I mean, it's their application. They could design it how
I
they
know
want,
they-
so I
they-
can't tell you why they didn't go up.
Question of the testimonies we heard.
Yeah.
So
So
we're like doing this backwards.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
kind of, that's true.
And
Thank
at
you.
the end of the day, if they were to tear down the house, they would be a lot closer. So I don't know if you understand fully. This is probably the least impact.
Yes.
If someone were to purchase this house 5 years from now,
Right.
and knock it down, it would be built a lot closer and it would not have to come before this board.
And there's no board within the town.
No, it would
No.
fall within the rights.
As
There's
long
no
as it
variance
falls
relief
within-
needed.
As long as it falls within the rights of the property and the zoning that's there, they wouldn't have to come before us at all.
Okay. Now this building is up as it's proposed and I have flooding. What's my remedy then? Sue everybody?
well, I mean, we're not going to. We can't give you guidance.
No, I'm not asking you to.
I can tell you this: your principal structure is not in conformance with the code as far as the setback from the side yard lot line. Your structure is closer to the mutual contiguous lot line with the applicant than they are to you. They're conforming.
On my side, not on the other side.
Your side. Well, you can't speak for another neighbor that's not
well,
here.
you know,
You're here on your own.
None of these houses were built the way they should have been built. So you shouldn't be the apologist for people who sat where you were in 1961.
I'm not apologizing. I'm pointing out the development of the streetscape here, which is relatively non-conforming. Your property being the biggest offender I see on the area map, where it's
You're right
located
up
on the
against
property.
you're right up against the property.
10
What if-
feet.
Yeah.
10 feet, yeah.
Yeah, and their proposal is about 40 feet away from the property line under the proposed conditions.
Okay, and 40 feet to my house, so
Well, it'd
So
be
the water's
50.
gonna run off their house, not bleach into the ground and run at my house like a train.
There are 50 feet structure to structure as proposed, the way they scaled it, 49 feet 4 inches. Between their proposed structure and yours at the pinch point, okay? The stormwater management, again, the standards that apply are municipal, county and their state regulations that apply. This is all subject to municipal review. A civil engineer signed and sealed his name to the plans. It corresponds to the architectural plans as to where the roof water will be draining into the chamber system as well. And this is all subject to review by the municipality to confirm it meets all applicable standards. So I don't know what we can offer you by way of clarity.
And if I could just add one clarification point, if this addition was to go up, if we see the same variance.
Right.
By increasing the gross building area, they're increasing the side yard setback, making the opposite side, we're not conforming just like
Right.
this.
The only reason they're here is because of their current distance to lot 17.
I understand
Not your
that.
lot.
I
That's the only reason
understand
that they're here. Otherwise, they would be building this with building permits.
But they could go up.
That it would
They would still,
be-
they would still
But
be
they
here.
still have to come here.
They would still be here and you would still be making the same argument.
Not necessarily.
They would
So
still
they
be
wouldn't
here.
be coming 40 feet towards my house.
They're not, well, they're 40 feet off the property line as proposed. Which is within the permitted building envelope.
But the water that would now runs off at their home 80 feet from my house is gonna run off 40 feet from my house.
Not necessarily.
It's not gonna branch into the ground.
No,
No,
because it's
because-
concentrated and it's gonna be directed into a cold tech
Into a
chamber,
Coltech chamber.
which is actually more than what you normally get, and Michael can speak to it. It's usually a seepage pit that's 1,000 gallons. They're proposing 3 Coltech chambers, which is a lot more than one seepage pit. So you're gonna capture all that water that's gonna hit the roof, it's gonna go into the gutters, and it's gonna be directed into the Coltech chamber. Right now, it drops onto the grass, and
Just flows.
all bets are off. It goes wherever it wants.
Yeah, I know.
They're actually working, their plans are working to mitigate
I mean, it's,
anything. That's why I asked the question in him about making sure that I anticipated there would have been some questions about stormwater. That's why I asked the question of the engineer, so we had a record, in addition to what's in the plans.
Does the town engineer oversee this?
Yes,
Are you the town engineer?
yes.
Mhm. Okay. And your name is? Very good.
And he's on site watching this.
Yeah, so if this was.
What, if you
If this
take a
was-
second and explain
Yeah, if this was
quickly.
to be, it could follow up with the plot plans. Typically, you don't get the previous design. But in this particular case, they hired an engineer to agree to prepare stormwater management plan. We will review those calculations, probably make some suggestions. Once the bid is issued, they will need to take soil samples during construction, to make sure that the soil is permeable enough for the sewage pit to work. And installation of the sewage pit that will work by either my office or by, and
And how do I follow up on this with you guys?
that I would recommend reaching out to Linda or Mr. Hagan.
Okay,
I won't know exactly what the issue.
okay.
I'm not here every day.
Okay.
Construction department is open and this would be construction.
Anytime somebody wants to make an improvement on their house, it's usually a good thing. I am here just to make sure that I am not saddled with thousands and thousands of dollars of bills to mitigate water that I don't want in my basement, which is what I had to do for 14 years, so. Okay.
We can assure you the borough engineer, the construction department takes these things very seriously, and everything that needs to be done will be.
Okay, all right. I will be checking out. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from anybody in the public? Seeing none, I bring it back to the board. Questions, discussion? Anything based on what we just heard? Okay. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Sir?
No, second.
Thank you.
Who was the second? Vice Chairwoman Bergen,
Yes.
Board Member Rosala.
Yes.
Board Member Petrino.
Yes.
Board Member Gugliaro,
Yes.
Councilman Yakarino,
Yes.
Board Member Dallo.
Yes.
Chairman Surrico.
Yes, I just want to state though that all of the, that consideration that was just raised with water, it's all taken care of in the plan. Don't worry, we'll find
It is.
Like
The one condition that we've got that we discussed specifically was the applicant engineers are going to maximize the use of the contact chambers to ensure the maximization of capture of the runoff by the addition, where there's the topographic drop off that happens to abut Mr. Crowley's lot line. And it's being reviewed by the municipal engineer.
I'm fine then based on that. So yes.
Board Member Butler,
Yes.
and President Thompson.
Yes. Okay. So next, the next step is, resolution next week.
All right.
Hold on.
Great, Patty.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Okay. All right, before we conclude. Here. Tyler, anything? Well, wait, open the meeting to anybody in the public. Any comments on anything? Okay, good. Seeing that, I bring it back. Tyler, since you're here, anything you want to talk about?
Nothing to substance. We had our land use committee meeting, the last time we met. We continue to look at things regarding the code, things that are going on in town. As we know, affordable housing is a prevalent issue that we're looking into, making sure that we're able to proceed in the best manner possible for the best interest of the borough.
Okay. And do you have anything? I don't know if you have any comments or anything like that going on you want to talk about? Nothing to do with what we did tonight or anything?
Andy and I have other things going on. You can tell you
Yeah,
now.
no, I don't know if there's anything. Okay. All right, that's it. Everybody, the only two things I'm going to ask is that, please, if you have comments on Ed's presentation, let's get it. Amy is counting on us with our expertise on this stuff. Please get it in. All right. And pick up your packets, right? If you guys have a chance, if you're not getting the stuff, email that the packets are picked up. We're going to have 2 meetings next month, right, Linda?
Yes, April 21st and April 23rd.
Okay.
I'll be here the 23rd.
I can zoom in. That's, we're talking about that, Linda. Do you have the capability to zoom me into either of these meetings?
If Tyler helps me.
Well, I will not be
Yeah, I'll
here on
away,
the
I'll be
23rd.
But I will be I can be the guy covering these meetings.
Okay. All right.
I will be in Kentucky.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, we're going to conclude. Motion to end meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Have a fun one.
I have to buy them.